Alright, welcome to the Strange North channel. In this video, I'm going to tell you about a woman that went missing from the Lac Ste area in 2015. Her name was Misty Faith Potts, and she was 37 years old at the time she went missing. I actually first learned about this case when I was researching another missing persons case around the lake, Paul Schroeder, and I covered his disappearance in another video. And as I was looking into that story, I was just curious to see if any other people had disappeared from around Lac Ste, and I came across the story of the disappearance of Misty Potts. And I'm just going to jump right into the story. So Misty Faith Potts was born in Edmonton in 1977, and she grew up in the Alexis Nakota Sioux First Nation. This is bordering Lac Ste on its western edge, and this is about 70 kilometers northwest of Edmonton. Misty had a couple brothers named Zachary and Percy Jr., and she had a sister named Ava. Misty and her family were very much involved in the traditions of their culture. Her father was heavily into hunting, and her mother performed traditional gathering duties for the family. And as a unit, their family was just very involved in their local community. According to Misty's sister Ava, Misty was a very kind, smart, compassionate, funny, and selfless individual, and she was very well loved by not only her family, but the greater community in which she lived. And many people made note of the fact that she was very committed to preserving her First Nations culture. After graduating from Onaway High School, Misty left home to study at the University of Manitoba, where she obtained her Bachelor of Arts in 2002. She continued on with her studies, and in 2010 she even earned her master's degree in environmental studies. Her thesis discussed the implications of the oil and gas industry on Canada's Indigenous populations. And while she was completing her studies, she helped with a documentary film called Wanurazi Yumnezi. I hope I'm saying that right. It translates to Awakening Spirit. And this film explores how industrialization impacts First Nations communities. This was followed by a teaching position at the Yellowhead Tribal College in Edmonton, and she also continued to work on a number of other environmentally related projects, as this was the main area of her study. Misty even planned to pursue her PhD part-time at the Athabasca University in Alberta, and things were going pretty well for her. I mean, she achieved a higher level of education than most people do in their lifetime, and she was very plugged into environmental causes. Misty eventually gave birth to a son named Gabriel, and she moved back to Manitoba, where she had done her post-secondary training. And then in 2011, Misty's brother Zachary died by suicide, and obviously this had a profoundly negative effect on Misty and her entire family. Misty started getting into drugs to self-medicate. It was said that she got heavily into cannabis and then eventually prescription drugs and methamphetamine. She would eventually separate from her husband, and her husband got custody of their son Gabriel. And so Misty was going through a rough time, as you can imagine, and she would move back to Alberta to get treatment and the support of her family. And her family said that she was serious about her recovery and that she had regular help with her addictions and her mental health. Despite this though, her family did suspect that she was still hanging out with drug dealers and having relapses, and they felt like there were drug dealers that were preying on her fragile mental and emotional state. Now, her family states that February 24th of 2015 was the last time anyone really interacted with her in person. On that day, she talked with her sister Ava. Apparently, she also called her son Gabriel in Manitoba, and she went to a local store with her mom where she ran into some of her other friends. Her family didn't see her for a little bit after this. Misty was last active on Facebook on March 7th of that year when she sent a message to her niece. And then approximately 1 week after this, on either the 13th, 14th, or 16th of March, sources vary, Misty was seen standing at the side of the road at the intersection of highways 43 and 765, and this is close to her mother's house where she was living. No one spoke to her at this time, but that was the last time that people actually saw her. After 2 weeks of no contact, her family notified the RCMP on March 3rd of 2015. While Misty would disappear for a week or two at a time, it was highly unusual for her to not call or message on social media. I mean, she just totally dropped off the face of the earth. And so after they were notified by the family, the Mayor Thorpe RCMP took over the case. They conducted many ground searches in the area that she was last seen, and they reached out to other RCMP detachments in BC, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, as Misty has ties to all three provinces. They brought in multiple canine tracking teams to try to find her scent, and the Parkland Search and Rescue Organization helped out as well. So there was a very significant search. Although Misty's sister Ava very quickly criticized the investigators and claimed that they didn't take the case seriously because because of Misty's history with drug abuse. I think she has a fair point. I've been interested in missing persons cases for a long time, and often when you're reading about them, the person writing the article emphasizes the victim's drug use. And that really pisses me off, because that is no reason to minimize what has happened. Just because someone has done drugs, that doesn't mean that they are less important. And I don't like that that's emphasized so much when people are talking about these cases. And I think it's mostly irrelevant to these searches. Yes, if someone has been involved in drug abuse and risky behavior, that definitely helps investigators. But it's almost as if there's this spirit of writing people off if they're involved in risky behaviors, as if those people should not really be looked for as hard as someone else. To increase public awareness about her sister's disappearance, Ava launched and organized her own ground searches. She would also conduct media interviews, and she organized round dances within their community. Ava and her family routinely traveled into Edmonton as well to search for Misty, and there were many reported sightings of Misty in some of the rougher areas of Edmonton's central core. Ava would later state that she really believed that Misty was dead due to her involvement with drugs and dangerous people. At the time that she went missing, Misty was about 5 feet 7 inches tall. There are reports of her weighing between 120 to 130 pounds with a medium build, but the RCMP stated that Misty weighed upwards of 170 pounds. She had dark brown eyes, black shoulder-length hair, and some prominent freckles. When she was last seen standing on the road at that intersection of highways, she was wearing a red jacket, coral-colored jeans, and thick black-rimmed prescription glasses. No one really knows what happened to Misty. They haven't found any significant clues yet, but according to the local RCMP, Misty may have traveled to Edmonton or BC's lower mainland. But she also had extensive ties in Manitoba and some in Saskatchewan as well. And like I said, there have been many unconfirmed sightings of Misty, especially in Edmonton, but in a bunch of other places as well. And of course, there are many possible explanations as to why she disappeared. Maybe she was abducted or kidnapped. Maybe she voluntarily ran away. She may have been hit by a car and someone just took her body and disposed of it. Many people think that's what may have happened to Paul Schroeder, a man who went missing from around the lake in 1972. And I was very interested to learn that there was another prominent disappearance that happened in the Lac Ste area. And of course, there's no reason to suggest it's related to the Paul Schroeder disappearance in 1972, but this is another prominent case of someone who went missing from this area. Others have speculated that her disappearance is related to the Highway of Tears, and this is referring to a stretch of the Yellowhead Highway, Highway 16, from Prince Rupert to Prince George in British Columbia. This is a section of highway that you've probably heard about where Indigenous women go missing at a disproportionate rate, as they do across the country, but it seems to have been really concentrated along this highway. Now, most people consider the Highway of Tears to be predominantly in British Columbia, where most of the cases have happened. But Highway 16 runs across the entire country, and a large portion of it runs very close to Lac Ste, where Misty went missing. And so some people include her case in the greater collection of Highway of Tears cases. Regardless, Misty's case is just another one of many cases where Indigenous women go missing or are murdered. And as of February of 2024, Misty has not been seen, and her family continues to search for her. I just want to extend a ton of compassion to Misty's family and friends who have been dealing with a very difficult situation with a frustrating lack of closure. And while I can see how talking about these cases could potentially hurt people who are closely involved, I still think it's worthwhile talking about these cases, partly because these people may still be out there and in need of assistance, and it can be a good thing to generate awareness of some of these things. And so that's the story of the disappearance of Misty Faith Potts from around Lac Ste in 2015. And this is just another one of the prominent missing persons cases from this area. If you watched this far, thank you very much, and I hope you found it interesting and informative. If you're interested in watching more of my content in general, please consider subscribing to my channel. I upload about one new video per week. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the Strange North channel.